Welcome, brothers. I'm your host, Octavius Blount, also known as the Urban Thinker. We got another good brother today for episode 2. We have an educational leader, community organizer, and an illustrious violinist. Hey, brother, if you can introduce yourself, please do.
Illustrious violinist is the word of the title of the day. Yeah, man, I'm Jack. I'm a friend of yours, man.
I know.
So that's what's important. Yeah. So I mean, I'm here. I respect myself. I'm a black man in Philadelphia. You know, things are things are great. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, man.
Before I say anything, I want to acknowledge the invitation. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I think that quite often we don't really get an opportunity, not just you and I, but just men, especially melanin enriched men, an opportunity to communicate like this. So thank you for extending that opportunity. This is great. And also, I want to ask that, invite, if you will. This is not anything spooky, but I want to invite sort of like the spiritual essence of Dr. Ed Robinson, who is someone who I respect highly, to sort of like guide the things that I might contribute, because I think it's all about education, and it's about educating in a light or in a way that, and sort of like the in the spirit of people that get it, people who understand it, and you know what I mean when I say they.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I'm Jack, son of Dawn and Jack, and very, very glad to be here. Philadelphia native, born and raised. Currently, in terms of what I do, I am an administrator at University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. I direct their equity, diversity, inclusion, and multicultural student engagement work. I'm having a great time doing it. Been here for about a year now, and just working with the future medical doctors of tomorrow.
Okay, I appreciate you for taking this invitation. It shows that you're a very valuable individual in my life. And it's also just looking at the space that we're in as far as black men and understanding that extending an invitation and being accountable. I learned that from you. I've seen it from you. So I appreciate you for instilling that in me and just showing up, because that's the main thing that we need to do together. So we're just going to kick it off. The first question I got for you is, what is one thing you love about being a black man?
Oh, man, I don't know if I can name one thing. You know what I mean? It's being black is it's so multifaceted and so wonderful. The first thing that comes to mind, I guess, is music. My default is music, black music in particular. You know what I mean? We take it back to the traditions, that whole pentatonic sound, the black keys on the piano, you know what I mean? We add flavor to sound. I consider myself as a scientist of sound, and man, like the music, it's like it's an ever going journey of like who we are and who we'll become. I know quite often in some of my courses I'll use the analogy about like water, how water, although it goes through its cycles, and we learn about the cycle of water, evaporation and precipitation, all that other stuff, but how it never really goes anywhere. I feel the same way about sound and energy. There is something that is with us. It relates to and sort of connects to, the melanin that is inside of us, and and just our movement, and and the way our blood crystallizes and that sort of thing. So, yeah, man, that's what being black to me means. It's a feeling. It's about the embodiment of all of those musical elements, So, yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I understand what you're saying, because with black men, from what I've seen, there's a specific walk that we have, the specific look that we have. And I would just say it's just a specific swagger that we have.
talk about it.
So when you say water,
Yeah.
it's like water flows, but we also flow depending on the day.
Right. Right. And it,
So I would say, go ahead.
no, you're right. And it don't go nowhere. We are the progenitors of, of that type of swag. Black folks created, not only language and,
Yeah.
mathematics, just different ways of scientific thinking and all of that. I mean, the idea here is that what we do is create, 24/7, it wasn't no word until Black folks start saying it. You know what I mean? Now it's on your newscasting, 24/7, stores open 24, like, come on now. You know what I mean? So we definitely add a little flavor and the things that we do. And it's all about culture, it's all about culture. So I love Black culture.
You love Black. Okay.
Yeah.
So do I.
Yeah.
And I think that when you say water flows, the one thing I want to add to that question is, how do you feel about being a Black man? I know you said water flows, but what's that feeling that you get when you say, I love to be a Black man?
Yeah, it's a multitude of feelings. You know what I mean? I am right now in my office, and I always keep handy. Let me see. I got it stuck to my desk. A feelings wheel. You know what I mean? A wheel of feelings. So, I feel excited, happy, surprised, sometimes pensive, sometimes, I mean, just a multitude of feelings. Because we are not, monolithic, sorts of people and that sort of thing. Like we embody a lot of feelings. So the greatness of who we are is really being able to find the light and be the light at the end of the tunnel and not necessarily give up. We've been through and we continue to go through so many struggles. So that those feelings, are what keeps us going, and having a relationship and understanding with those feelings helps us to move the way that we've been moving. Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate you for saying that, because now it leads right into the segment that I want to talk to you about. I was going to break down some things about you.
Okay.
It's called In the Den with Jack Drummond.
Okay.
And the first question I have for you is, at what moment did you discover you were a Black man?
Did I discover? I don't think I've ever been asked that question. I think I would. So when I was younger in elementary school, I used to attend a school called Samuel Powell Elementary, right? And one of the prerequisites for the school, they had a quota, back in the day. I went to school back in the 1900s, so I know what I'm saying. Well, anyway, but back in that time period, they had a quota, so they would only accept a quota for like the racial, and ethnic sorts of students that they would accept. So anyway, long story bearable, my mother signed us up for classes at that institution. Am I allowed to say that names of the institution? Okay, cool. Signed us up for classes, and like I said, we had a quota. So she got signed up first, my sister, and she was the last Black student that was accepted. African American student, Black student, right? That was accepted at that institution. And when it came time for me to be accepted, there were no more slots for Black students. So I had to be enrolled as something else. My mom said, "This boy is white." What? So they were like, "Okay." She said, "My son is white." So she told me this story. I'm just fast forward to another day. Like, she told me this story years later, because they didn't refute it. My mom was the type of woman that you definitely don't want to necessarily say no to when she's determined about getting, and having her way and fighting for her children in some kind of way, shape, form, or fashion. She was a lioness, somebody who was sugar and spice, but more spice. But anyway, I had to enroll in that institution as a white student, right? So my mother told us later, like, what happened, and she began to explain to us sort of this, dichotomizing race and understanding, why these things occurred, and and why it impacts the ways in which we live. So I think that some of my earliest memories come from, my mother explaining to me, like, what it means to be Black. Like, what does that mean? And then, I began to develop understandings about, how multifaceted we are, from mahogany to chestnut and beyond. And then I began to look at the gradations of what it means to be Black in a color, right?
Yeah.
I understood what it means to be light-skinned, a light-skinned Black man, a Black man nonetheless, but you light-skinned. So it's some stuff that come with being light-skinned, right? So, I for a while, it took me, it took a while to kind of really understand that. But I was impacted in terms of how I was treated, by my own family, by my own community, by the world that I lived in at large, for being just born a particular way with a particular background, ethnicity, all of that, and the color, So, I think that I don't know what the exact question was again, but
no, you answered it.
Some of the earliest memories I have in terms of like being a Black man and like what that meant to me early on.
Yeah. Okay. You answered it very well because it's your moment. And I can agree with when you say we're all different colors, even though we're in one race.
Right.
Some people got to understand that, yes, you being a light-skinned brother, some doors may open for you, some may not open for me, and vice versa. But when we sit down with each other, yes, I can be a different skin color than you, but you understand what's going on in the space that I'm in as a man and as a Black man.
Absolutely.
So I think that for myself, when I discovered it was, I've talked about some before, but this one specifically hit home for me. At my alma mater, I graduated from Arcadia University. You know that. And I don't know if you know the situation, but I believe in my junior year, I think if you know me and you know my mother, I get things done ahead of time. And there was a paper that had to be done. And, it's supposed to be 5 to 10 pages. I did 10, 12 because it was about the good, the bad, the ugly of hip hop. And so, I went in and I just did the paper. And when I came into class, there was a conversation around, hey, we didn't get done our paper. Can we have more time? And I'm like, I just did 12 pages and nobody else did anything besides myself and one white woman and maybe somebody else in the class. So she let them leave and go home. And when we had to just stay in there, I said, can we go home? Because we finished our papers. And the next day, I got a call to come into the office. And she said, did you plagiarize this paper, sign this pink slip? And I said, no, I didn't. So you can take that back. And she said, well, there's a couple of things in here that you didn't cite and this, and that. And I said, okay, can you show me? And she's like, oh, right here. I said, well, I can go to my reference page and tell you where I got it from.
Right.
I said, is this the only one that I missed? She was like, yeah. I was like, okay. And I went back to the page and I highlighted 4 people that agreed with that specific statement.
Right.
And she said, well, I'm going to still need you to sign this. I said, I'm not signing it. And just based off of that situation, my mom always said, don't give someone the ammunition to make you seem less than who you are, which basically means don't let them see you sweat. And when I said, is that it? And she said, well, did anybody write this for you? Did anybody help you with this paper? I said, no, I wrote everything. And I said, I've had someone that's been reading my paper since elementary school that read over it because they know my writing. They know how I think. They know how I talk. So when I walked out that door and I closed her office door, I immediately got a headache because it was so much like just built up anger. And then just that thought of, I didn't think this would happen to me.
Absolutely.
But it did.
Yeah.
And the conversation of that whole thing is like, okay, now that you're at this, you want to call it an elite school or whatever you want to call it, you're still seen as a Black man. And that was a struggle for me.
But that's what gets me. And I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No, I was done.
That's what gets me about the academy, and that could be a whole totally another conversation and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, clearly, melanin enriched men and boys, we have the ability to read, write, think, and compute at levels that are competitive and all of that sort of thing. We can do these things clearly, right?
Yeah.
And writing in particular, since you mentioned about, your story and writing in particular is one of those phenomenons that so early in life, a lot of Black men that I know have been shut off from doing, right? Either because they believe that they don't necessarily do it well, or they can't do it well, and that sort of thing. But it's so closely tied into a strong emotion of sorts because, early on, we're used to looking at papers with big red marks and checks and da-da-da-da-da, and you didn't do this right, or you didn't say this correctly, or this wasn't the, syntax, and subject verb agreement was off here, and blah, 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 and all these sorts of things, like early on. And I think that early on, when people experience those types of things, we start to feel some kind of way, especially if we hold on to some of these feelings and that we've been, like developing and things like that with us. Later in life, it's like we do something and you can't tell me, who are you to critique me, first and foremost, right? Secondly, your writing is your language. It's a part of who you are. It's a part of how you express yourself, how you understand things, what limits you, how you expand your life and your source around you. You know what I mean? So, so when you knock my language, when you knock my expressions, the very ways that, I present something to you, that's a knock against me in many regards. That's how many people feel, So I only say that to say that I can certainly relate to, like what you were feeling back then during that time when that happened, and the headaches and it really this notion of having to kind of like prove yourself. It's like when you do it, it's not good enough. You have to prove it. You have to prove, that you did this, you were capable of doing that. You can think like this. This is what and so often that becomes, tiring, or it becomes, you just get perplexed by the idea of having to prove so often in so many arenas, not just school and the academy, but like, in the community in many regards, when you go other places, and then when you get into more personal relationships, you got to prove. It's just a lot. So I feel you. I definitely feel you. And then one more thing I wanted to mention, because we talked about, and I know we aren't talking about this whole colorism notion and all of that, right? But the idea is that, a lot of times it's mentioned that, folks with like lighter skin, closer to white, if you will, have different types of opportunities. And I also think that, that works in the reverse as well, especially when we're talking about communal or intercommunal, types of communications and relations and, and that sort of thing. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. Not a lot of people really kind of talk about, that aspect.
The flip. Yeah. I hear you. And I appreciate you for hearing me. And you said, I like that you brought up and showed the feeling wheel, because that's the next space that we're going to go in. Is how did you explore your feelings when you were younger? You can talk about them now. You can talk about them previously. So,
so I'll go backwards. I'll start from now. Now I am a little bit more contemplative about, my feelings and all of that. As a man who is in touch with his own masculinity and also with his divine femininity as well, this balance of feelings that I hold looks a little different now. Back then, I think I was more so seen as, or I kind of looked at feelings and emotions as, I was more so a follower, if you will. Like what society said, the things that I was learning, not only in the household, but in the community, I kind of go with, the flow of how boys and men are supposed to act, So it wasn't really exploratory. It wasn't really that I had an opportunity to kind of really think through and synthesize before I actually made some moves or behaved in certain ways about my feelings. It's more so, it was a quick thought because it's what I saw in society or what I heard and, or saw at home. And more so just doing what I felt I was supposed to do, I think that it wasn't until I got, since we're I guess on the heels of talking about, being Black and exploring feelings, it wasn't until I got to college that I really started to understand certain feeling or different feelings around, being in my own skin and being myself, and, and identifying as a Black man. When I got to college, I became very angry with some of the things and the lessons that I was learning. The fact that, a lot of the ways in which Black men in this country have been treated since its inception continue today. Like it's still going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And why hasn't it changed, as of whatever day it was or it is today? You know what I mean? So I think in college that was the first time that I experienced what, and I haven't come up with a name for it, but just this Black anger, this anger towards white people, towards white, controlled society, towards, sort of this societal view that I was supposed to accept, and became very, very, very angry, and I think that when that happens, if it happens, because sometimes it doesn't even happen in many of our lives, but when and if it happens, there are options with that anger. We could take it out on our own folks, our loved ones, or our own people. Sometimes we get upset. It's like, oh, how can or how do you have this knowledge and we know such and such that these people struggle for us and our family member, our ancestors did blah, blah, blah. And you up here doing, so we can take it out on ourselves. We can take it out on white folks. White folks, you see people, you get upset, you get an attitude, you don't really want to befriend, them for whatever reasons. It could be historical understandings that you've come into. It could be, sort of present day understandings that upset by. So it's so many ways that you can kind of take that as a pendulum, right? And I kind of found myself kind of navigating in between both, because I wanted to have this humanistic sort of like, kumbaya moment in life where like, why can't we all just get along literally? And then I also wanted to be angry. Like I enjoyed that feeling because it was the first time in my life where I had that type of aha moment and I felt the fire and wanted to express it, like my ancestors, like, some of the modern day, freedom fighters, because I still believe we have a long way to go to be, free, like in a real way, you know what I mean? So, that was a pivotal feeling for me, that whole ball of anger and what I did with it. So, in and throughout time, I guess to answer the question directly, in and throughout time, I didn't really think about it much. I just kind of acted. And then as I began to learn more about myself, and whose shoulders I stood on, it became a little bit more balanced for me to kind of think about the feelings and emotions that I have in relation to how I act on them.
Okay. Yeah. Now, for me, I think hearing what you're saying when you said you had like just this ball of fire just inside you as far as like anger, I think mine goes in like waves. Like when I discovered my feelings and being able to explore them. Quick story: my uncle, Uncle Tiger. His name is Earl, but we call him Uncle Tiger. He was the first Black man to say "I love you."
Wow!
And I didn't know, how that felt until he said it. Like my mom can say it, my aunts can say it, my cousins can say it, but when my uncle, who had me like this when I was young, he kept saying it.
Wow!
And he was the first Black man that I heard say it to me.
Wow!
Not me say it first and then he say it back. So he still says it to this day. And that is what helped me say it to other Black men. So when I say, hey, bro, I love you, I'm not just saying it to say it.
Right.
I'm saying it because I actually do.
It's beautiful.
And just hearing, like I've said it to you on several occasions when we've worked together and beyond, because I mean it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us brothers don't say it enough.
True.
Because we may not hear it from other people. We may not hear it from family members or person that we're with, significant others.
Right.
And when I explored that feeling of saying it and hearing it back from somebody, I got to think to myself, do they actually mean it? Or is it just like a natural numbness to, oh, okay, I got to say it back.
Right.
And just another wave of emotions. When I was younger, it was also an understanding of it's okay to be angry.
Yes. Yeah.
And my mom always said that. She was like, hey, I know you're upset, but you need to tell me why you're upset so we can get through this.
Right.
So it's not just sitting there, because sometimes it just sat there. Because I didn't feel like if I expressed myself, like you said, there were some things you went with what society said for Black men.
Right.
I wouldn't say stuff to my mom because I'm like, I don't want her crying or I don't want this person in front of me to be upset at how I'm expressing myself and what I'm saying to him. So whenever I was upset, I would just be like, hey, Mom, I'm upset, but how it comes off is not me being upset with you. It's just me internally being upset about something.
Right.
And I don't know how to let it out in a respectful or understanding way. She said, well, and what I took from her and what I do with when I talk to young Black men, she says, well, just say how you wanted to say it. Just don't curse. Just say how you wanted to say it. And we can figure out how to, when you walk out this door, you can represent yourself in a way that is understanding for people to hear you. Because you have to be heard. As a Black man, you should be heard and want to be heard. So just exploring those two feelings for a Black man like me was very pivotal in my growing up, however you want to say it. So I appreciate you for saying you had just like a ball of fire. Like, I don't know where it was, but for mine, it was just like right here.
Okay.
You said you still got it.
Okay. Many regards. Still got it. Yeah.
Now that also leads into
before you go into that, bro, because you just mentioned some great stuff, right? And the idea that you brought love into the conversation is what really kind of makes it, it really kind of increases the value of the conversation to me, right? Quite often when we express things, right, we either we're recipients of those things in many cases, and it makes it easier for us to express that for others, you know? So a lot of times when it is expressed, like if you say, you know, brother, I love you for whatever reason, and it kind of falls either on deaf ears or like brothers are kind of hesitant to kind of like, you know, return the love. A lot of times people haven't been loved and appreciated in that kind of way. You know what I mean? They don't necessarily know what it is. You know, sometimes love doesn't have to be spoken, you know? Sometimes it's received better in that kind of way or whatever, or, you know, but the fact that, you know, that you were taught to love out loud is a very pivotal lesson, especially for Black boys, you know, Black men, you know, need that. We need that, you know? And I just wanted to say, I think that that's dope because you can kind of tell, you know, when people practice love, you know, and when they're able to give it, you know, because I think early on I had issues accepting, you know, love, you know, especially expressions of love from men, because the men in my life didn't necessarily do that. You know what I mean? That wasn't like a thing. It was more so like, okay, I just gave you $5, you know, let you know I love you. You know what I mean? Yeah, some candy, I'm giving you $5. That's my expression. Like, you know, and there's different ways to do that, but to actually say it, right, and show it, you know, and even saying it is showing it in some you know, some shape, form, or fashion. But I just think that that's so dope. You know, it begins to resonate with us, you know, when we're told, you know, things, when we receive things, you know, internally, it impacts our whole body, not just our thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, earlier I mentioned like the crystallization of blood, you know, quite often, you know, we're receptive beings. Whereas if someone tells us something negative, you know how like when we get in flight or fight mode, you know, we get fight mode, you know, our limbs, the blood starts to rush away from, you know what I mean? So we won't necessarily feel things if we battling and things like that or whatever. And that could be the start of it, could have been based on something that we were told, what our blood does something different. So if it's something negative, it crystallizes in a very jagged way, right? But when we're told things on the opposite side of the pendulum, like, you know, like, I love you, like, I love you, you know what I mean? Then it makes us, we breathe easier, our blood flows and crystallizes into the perfect crystals, you know. So anyway, I just thought that that was dope to mention because, you know, and if you're going to ask me down the line, like, what do we need? That's what we need, bro. We need love. We need it. So I'm going to answer that first. So.
I appreciate you for jumping in and saying that, though, because I've never heard somebody say, well, that's good to hear. That's good to say. That's good to say to you, for your uncle to say that to you, because now your body says something to you. Now you're going to receive it in a way that, and present it in a way, it may be acceptable for you, but how is that other person going to accept it? Because you just said not a lot of people are loved in a way that's verbal.
Right.
Because you have acts of service. You can do something for somebody, like you just mentioned. You got words of affirmation. You just got, they may not say I love you. They may just say I'm proud of you. Like that does something too.
Yeah.
And you have a whole lot of things. You got 5 love languages everybody talks about. And like I just said 2 of them. So people that talk about those love languages, I can understand it because I've experienced it.
Gotcha.
From men and from my fiance, my mother, my cousins. So it's like you just get a certain feel. Now, if they say, hey, look, you're doing X, Y, and Z wrong, now it's a different feeling. It's like, oh,
right.
My bad.
I was just trying to
but yeah.
Yes.
But like I said, this is a like I said, we're in the den with you. So like the last one for in the den is who did you learn from, or how did you navigate society as a Black man? So when I ask that question, it's going off of saying, did you see anyone? Did you model anybody? And then right now, how are you navigating?
Yeah, I mean, so I learned from a lot of the people that I grew up with, people that I saw, you know, mysterious mentors, you know, who I've adopted in my mind as mentors, you know. You know, so clearly my parents, you know, and then later in life when I started to read folks like Amos Wilson, you know, and the falsification of African consciousness, and you know, people like, I mean, just we don't have to name names, but the point is, you know, those folks who, you know, made an impact based on, you know, the things that I learned, whether it was through an educational lens or just actually being in the community and seeing things, you know. I was influenced by, you know, a brother who was a sanitation employee, you know what I mean? Because he used to talk to us. He was one of the only people who used to talk to us in the neighborhood. I mean, he didn't say much, but he was just like, yeah, you did your homework? Yeah, okay, well, you know, like just little things. And, you know, like Black men just didn't talk to us. You know, so I was inspired by, he told me that he was a chef as well, you know, so I wanted to be a chef. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I want to be a sanitation worker and I want to be a chef. You know what I mean? No, seriously. Like that is, those were my very first sort of like aspirations. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to learn how to cook everything. I'm going to pick up all the trash in the world. And then that's whatever. That's what I want to do, you know? So, and that grew from, you know, just people talking. So I feel like I've had a lot of influences in terms of, how I learned and also how I practice love, you know. A lot of it came from my more intimate sort of relationships with, like, you know, like family members and experiences with family members, things like that. Begin to learn what love looked like, what it felt like, how to give it. Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why I asked this question is because I said to a couple other brothers that I've talked to before, I'm coining the term Black Mount Rushmore, because I have my own, but it's not for like celebrities and presidents and everything like that. It's people that were in my life that I looked up to. So it's mainly all the men that I call my uncles. It's 5 of them. I know it's 4 of them on the Mount Rush, but I'm adding one more because those men were pivotal in my life because I got to see what was right and wrong. And then after them came you and other brothers that I had to say, okay, I looked at my Mount Rushmore. I know right from wrong as a black man. Now I have to navigate this world. If I see a black man that's positive, if they're doing something negative, I have to take mental note of that. I have to take a mental note of, okay, Jack showed me, hey, I'm not going to hold your hand the whole time. I'm going to kick this door down. You got to walk through it. You always said to me, I'm not going to, you didn't really say it, but you modeled it. You said, hey, I'm not going to hold your hand the whole time. I'm going to kick down this door and you walk through it because you're ready. And now I had to take that same experience and take it for other black men that are younger than me to say, okay, yeah, I can hold your hand to a point. But at some point, I'm going to have to kick this door down because I was ready for it already. Now you got to walk through because you're ready for what's the next ahead. Right. And I think that was the best thing that you've done for me when it comes to being a black man and seeing, hey, yeah, I'm going to hold your hand because that's what I'm supposed to do. If you're walking across the street or this and that for you to be safe. Right. But I care about you too much. I'm not going to open up this door for you. Right. I care about you too much. So I'm going to kick it down and let you walk through. And if you turn around and say, hey, I did it, I'm opening up the next one for the next brother. Right. Just let them walk through. Yeah. So
let me let me put myself on the spot right now. Right. And this is one of those things because you've always been inspirational and reciprocal and very intentional in the things that you say. Right. So I learned that and got that from you. Right. Okay. And it's difficult for me to even sit here and listen to you say like, yeah, no, well, that's what I get from you. And you tell me and and I'm just like, what? Like, so I think that that's dope to acknowledge, those things that you pick up, that you learn, that you teach, people. I think that that's dope. And I want you to know I hear you. And I appreciate you even mentioning, something like that. I like to see myself as sort of like a reflection, a vessel, if you will, in many regards, but like a reflection. I feel like a lot of the things that happen, whether they're deemed good, if they are, seen like in a positive light or, received as a positive thing, they ain't come from me. You know what I mean? I'm a part of the source, I'm a part of, that thing that has been keeping us and keeping us strengthened and, keeping us flowing and going, so I feel like anything that you receive, man, it's clearly not of me. I can't take credit for none of that because I'm crazy. You already know. So I feel you. I'm glad, brother, that you acknowledge that. And then also, I also like, and you didn't ask me this, so I'm kind of veering off. If you just be like, you could. Okay, all right. But I mean, I also think that, in some way, we are all sort of like painters of our own life and our own experiences, right? So you could have taken something that you saw and said, that ain't good. I'm going to just paint that as a negative experience. And that's how I will see this person. Every time I see this person do a thing, I'm going to see it as being a negative thing. You know what I mean? So anything that you see either myself or anybody else do that's good, that's also a reflection of you because you painted that as being good, right? You deemed it as being good. And I think that comes from the goodness in you. So in turn, I want to acknowledge you on your goodness that you bring.
Thank you.
That you did, you know what I mean? So it's just an awkward thing to accept, compliments of sorts. It's like, you know what I mean? So.
I appreciate you for saying that because like you just said, some people don't know how to take compliments. I'm one of them. Like I can hear them and I can take them, but it's like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do with this compliment that you just gave me? Do I run with it? Do I stay in this moment? Do I just take it in and reflect on it? Like, what should I do in that moment of just reflection? Because a lot of us,
you give them,
yeah.
So, like, how are you not gonna be able to accept? So I don't know. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I mean, no, you good. I was just telling you that just being able to have that understanding of, okay, me reflecting on this space that I'm in.
Right.
Like, what is that? I know I can give so many compliments, but it's like me receiving them is a little different. The same thing with gifts.
Right.
I can give so many gifts, but it's like, okay, me receiving this, yeah, okay, it's my birthday. Yeah, I understand that.
Right.
But if I just get a gift out of the blue, it's like, oh, do I take it? Yes, I'm going to take it because it's coming from you. It meant something to you. So that's just the space that I'm in as far as like understanding compliments, gifts when they're not supposed to happen or it's not a specific moment.
Right. I love it.
But yeah,
I love it.
So we're going to move into this next space of, I call it who you repping.
Okay.
And the first question I have for you is, how do you represent your identity? So I know you have different hats that you wear. I called you an illustrious violinist, community leader, community organizer. I also called you an educational leader. So you have different hats that you wear. So how do you represent those as a Black man?
Being a Black man, I think, is also a hat, that many of us wear because race in so many regards is a big social construct, right? But I feel like okay. Let me answer the question the way the artist formerly known as the artist Jack answers it, right? So the way that I'm a light being, I'm over titles right now. I don't know,
I feel you.
Maybe it was the substances that I used earlier in life and that sort of thing. I don't know, but I'm a light being. You know what I mean? Here to be a reflection of the one, of the source of all, of God, of whatever folks are sort of imagine. But I'm a light being, man, and I'm here to just do my part. Here to be a functioning part of the body and really just do the best that I can, along the way. So in terms of identities, like mentor, coach, direct, all these different titles and all of that sort of thing. It's sometimes difficult for me to acknowledge them without, first acknowledging, the very basic aspect of who I am, this energy, this light, that I am. So in terms of how, I really kind of am comfortable with the idea of being a light being and just kind of moving through. Titles are going to change, we all Black now, but we, come 3000, we might be something else. We went from, the N word, Negro, Afro-American, African. I mean, we have a lot of different ways that we identify, which is, like you said, it's another hat. But at the end of the day, we represent light. I represent light, and I'm just doing my part, man. So I don't really know all these titles and all that other stuff, man. And then, like I said, I could sit and answer your question in a different way. Well, that
you don't have
such
to.
and such.
I totally understand what you're
saying.
Know
what I'm saying? Like, and then in the future, I will become such great. It's great to know that the very essence of me is light. It really is, man. I think that growing up, many people are told what they are. You are this. You are Black. You are light skinned. You are. I said did it. I did. I really did. You know what I mean? You are this. You are this title. We hired you for this title. You have this position. You do this, right? So we are told what we are, and sometimes we believe what we're told, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's true or not. Like we believe what we're told, right? And the idea of that is that throughout our development, we get used to a certain sort of rhythm of things. And the rhythm of it is that we're told this, we believe it. We're told this, we believe it. We're told this, we do it, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I also think we need to be conscious of who we aren't. We need to be able to, because balance to me is power. Right. So we need to be able to break down the very essence of who we are and understand who the root of who we are, that light, that energy, being, right, first break ourselves down to nothingness. Who are you without being black? You know, or who are you and who were you before you was told you was black? You know, who were you before you were told that you are beautiful? Who were you before you were told that you know, you do really well in math? You're a magician. You're this, you know, you run really well. You play sports very well. Like who are you without all of these sorts of titles and that sort of thing, you know, that become identities and that sort of thing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. What I'm saying is that I think that we need to begin to balance those things out and really be reminded of the nothingness that we are, right? And what I mean, like I said, I ain't saying we nothing, like we something, we kings, we all of that, but we're also nothing to me.
Yeah.
Also nothing to me. Like, you know, specks of dust. You know, how many billions of people on this earth? 8 billion? Like billion? Like billion. If we get plucked off some kind of way, like it's billions here. Billions. So who are you in the midst of this ocean of billions and of beings? You know what I mean? Like what makes you so special? And we don't have to always focus on how special you are. You know what I mean? And all the titles we have, bro, like we are also nothing. Nothing. So anyway, you know, that was the artist in me just trying to go. But what I'm saying is that, you know, I'm trying at this point in life, during this interview, in this moment right now, I am focused on being the light being that I am and really trying to do the best to make this thing called life happen, you know, for me and the people I love.
I appreciate you for saying that, because that's a question that brothers don't ask themselves. Who are you without the titles? Who are you without the jewelry? Who are you without the cars and everything else? Who are you?
Right. Who? Psych, no, go ahead.
The hat, like who are you? Like I can, like when I say, how do you represent your identities? I can say for myself, I represent my family, my last name. But then you can also say, do you represent yourself when you walk into a room? And that comes to the question that you just asked. Who are you before you even step into the room? And that question leads to a lot of other things that you can ask yourself.
Right.
And I don't know if you wanted to say something else, because that leads to my next question of like, before you walk into that room, what expectations do you have on yourself? And what expectations do you think others have on you?
I don't know.
Hey, that's a good answer.
So in terms of the expectations that I have for myself, I think the most constant expectation is to be, you know, to be. And what I mean by that is that we don't always have to be the best or whatever, but like be, you know. So I expect myself to show up, to be present, to be light filled, and to spread the light. You know, that's what I expect. It don't always happen, clearly, you know, because I got a whole lot of flaws and a whole lot of anger and a whole lot of, you know, other types of,
ain't nothing wrong.
You know what I mean?
Ain't nothing wrong with anger.
That I carry with me, you know. So, but yeah, so my expectation for myself is to be. A lot of times I don't focus very heavily. I can't say I don't focus at all, because I do. But I don't focus very heavily on the expectations of others anymore.
Okay.
You know? Again, I'm a man of a certain age and stage in life. And right now, what I feel, what I say, I mean it more so these days. You know, back when I was in, you know, in the yesteryears of life, you know what I mean? I may have said some things, did some things, whatever. It's like, I don't really mean it. I'm just exploring. I'm kind of know. No, when I say something now, I mean, like, you should probably hold me to my word that when I say it, I mean it. You know what I mean? So the expectations of others, man, you know, I practice the motto that, you know, what other people like think about me in a sense or feel. It's like really none of my business in a sense. you know? So I'm like, you know, it's not my business. You know, if they care to share, then, you know, sometimes it becomes my business. Sometimes I accept it. Sometimes I don't. But I'm not really as focused on other people's expectations. I think that, again, with the whole example of being a reflection and being an artist, I try to emit what I want to receive from others. So, you know, if I want others to see me as loving, that's what I try to put out. If I want others to see me as somebody or something or whatever, then I try to put that out there. You know what I mean? So it's all about reciprocity, you know. And my goal, I guess, would be to reach a collective consciousness among like all of us, so that we know and we feel the same, not the same, but you know what I'm saying? Like we can understand each other without all of the hoopla that we've been inundated with, like so much. That's what music is.
So the fact,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's what I was going to ask you. That's what I was going to ask you about music. And what does that do for you? That was the question that I had in my head. Like, what does that do for you? Because I know you said, you have no expectations. I said what I said, but how does music, like, what expectations do you have for yourself, like in the music space, growth and everything like that?
Right. Yeah, man. So like the music and what I feel about it is really another podcast, or maybe it's this one, right? So everything that I've stated thus far has something to do with music. You know, I strongly believe, and maybe this is just the artist in me. I strongly believe that each of the elements, the 5 fundamental elements of music we embody, right? Melody, harmony, pitch, rhythm, and form. And form, lastly, is the way that we kind of all put it together. So to me, like, you know, when we talk about like, what does it mean? That's a part of the form, right? How we put these things together, how we walk, you know, in terms of what we do in our lives. You know, the melody has to speak to our uniqueness, you know, it speaks to our voices, you know, it speaks to the ways in which we sort of like navigate and move the way we do, right? That single unique person who is you, who is me, who is other people, you know, that is the melody of their lives. Harmony, the way things are working together, you know, physically, spiritually, mentally, right? You know, sometimes there's a little discord here and there, but, you know, overall, as far as I'm concerned, you know, we function in life harmoniously, like we're doing things together, right? Rhythm, you know, like rhythm. It's a certain rhythm and way that we kind of flow. You talked about like swag and all this other stuff earlier, and I agree with that. I think that has to do with our rhythm, you know, the way that we move, the way that we walk, the way that we kind of handle certain situations. You know what I mean? That has to do with our rhythm. And some people are like more upbeat, you know, and some people are just, you know, like you a cool brother. Like, you know, I think everybody who knows you understands that, listen, Octavius has this mellow, you know, smoothness about him that, you know, when it comes to dealing with, you know, the realities of life, you know, he's going to handle it, and he's going to handle it with, you know, a certain posture and a certain way, you know, it's a smoothness. Now, me on the other hand, bro, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's something different. Like, you know, I'm all around. I even walk fast, you know what I mean? Like you know, so, but, you know, so I think that has to do with that. And, pitch, you know, the highs and lows that happen in our life, you know, when I say melody, harmony, pitch, rhythm, and form, you know, the way we put it all together. So, I mean, I know that those were just snippets of, you know, the aspects that I'm talking about, but my life is musical. It really is, you know, and filled with a whole lot of improvisation, you know. So like, you know, I'm making up my own rules sometimes and playing my own notes and doing things to the melody, you know, that's a little different than, you know, everybody else's and whatever has been going on. So my life is music, man. It really is. And besides, you know, some of the more philosophical things that I'm talking about, like literally and physically, music impacts me. You know, like I said earlier to you, I'm trying to get, you know, some things together physically, right? You know, what helps me with that is music. You know, certain music that kind of gets me going. Like I just, you know, it's certain music that slows me down. There's certain music and sounds that is very cathartic, that'll keep the noise out, if you will. And some music that'll bring the noise in, So I mean, in terms of how it impacts me, I mean, every day I am impacted by music, by sound. Yeah.
Okay. I know. I heard you say for Black men that you want, as a Black man, as a collective conscience.
Yeah.
So the question that leads into that is, how would you like people to perceive yourself and other Black males?
How would I like people to perceive me? Again, however, I leave that up to the artist, right? And I mean, I hope that's not like an easy, or you considering that as like what you call it, like I'm trying to dodge the question or something like that.
No, that's your answer.
So my answer is really, I leave that up to the artist. I don't really have a particular way that I want people to see me. I would love for people to see love in me, and the love that I emit and that sort of thing, because I know that they're seeing God, because that's not me. It's not me. It's not. I don't. Anything that's good, again, it's not from me. It don't come from me. I'm a vessel. So look at the vessel. You know what I mean? I don't even look like anyway, the point is, I think that, I think that I'm going to leave that up to the artist, leave that up to the individual to create how they see me,
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you want them to perceive Black men as a whole? Because I know there are some things that we said as far as transitioning from a word, the N word, to now.
Sure.
So how would you want people to see Black men as a whole?
Thoughtfully, respectfully, honestly, and skillfully seeking to learn more, because you can't know everything. You know what I mean? Fascinated by the life of a butterfly. You know what I mean? So the tail end of my answer about perceiving Black men, think of the life of a butterfly, and it starts off, what we learned in elementary and middle, all that, whatever, like pupa and all of that, caterpillar, chrysalis or cocoon phase, become a butterfly, right? So it's different phases and all of that. But think of Black men as butterflies. That's kind of weird, right? You Black man, butterfly, right? Or it's kind of beautiful. And what I mean by that is that, you start off one way, or you start off having these thoughts, right? And when I say respect, because I talked about respect, when I say respect, I mean literally what the word means. Respect. Spec means to look or to view. Re means to do it again. So look at Black men again. You start off one particular way, or have one particular, vision or understanding of Black men, right? And then throughout life, Black men go through different cycles, right? And we, sometimes we're in our cocoon phase. Sometimes we're caterpillar, we're crawling and we're learning and we're growing, we're eating, we're doing things. Then you get in that cocoon phase where you're deep in thought. You begin to break yourself down in ways that you hadn't broken yourself down before. When a butterfly is in its cocoon or chrysalis, right? It literally turns itself into a soupy nothing, like a soupy liquid. It's liquefied. So like what it was before, right? It has reached a point in life where it begins to liquefy itself. Like it's gone. It's no longer what it used to be, right? So when you think about the potential, when people think about the potential for Black men, understand that is a possible sort of realm that Black men could be in. Like, it's not how it used to look. If society is portraying that, Black men are this and they crawling and they doing X, Y, and Z, that ain't how. That's not like, it's not a realistic and sort of like a monolithic way that Black men are. Black men go through cycles just like all men, right? And while in the chrysalis, one of the most beautiful things about a butterfly, or sort of this, whatever it is in the chrysalis, right, this soupy mess, is that it has something called imaginal cells. Now, I'm not a scientist, whatever, so I'm not going to get all into all of that. I'm a scientist of sound. But anyway, there's these things called imaginal cells, right? And these imaginal cells begin to activate. Once it becomes the soupy nothingness, it begins to activate, and it tells this bowl of nothing what to become, right? So it's becoming something different. It's the construction of its wings. It's the construction of how its body will begin reshaped and all of that, right? And that's beautiful. Imagine, like, are you kidding me? You are literally transforming and becoming something that you were not, right? So when Black men, and I think it happens in many of our lives, right? When Black men get into that phase or that state where we, we're shedding a whole lot of the past and what happens, right? And we're becoming something new. That's a very powerful period of our lives. So think of Black men like that. And then when we finish with that period, right? And we become, the beautiful creatures that, the new creatures, after going through the drudges and after doing X, Y, and Z, and after really taking some time to shed some things, right? Just let us fly. Like, leave us. We can't curse on here. I'm not gonna curse, but anyway, the point is, let us be. Let us do us. Let us just fly freely, and look, admire our beauty, learn, do it with us. You know what I mean? Like, join us in our flight. So that's how I want people to see Black men.
Okay. I totally agree with you. As far as the transitional stages that we go through as Black men, and that's helpful because to actually see an image of a caterpillar to a butterfly, like just see, I'm a visual person. So me listening to you, that's why I was so in tune to what you were saying, because I was trying to picture this caterpillar turning into a butterfly.
Yeah.
So when you say for Black men, when are you that caterpillar? When are you in that cocoon stage? And when are you flying? And that leads to the question that I got for you is, what piece of advice would you give the next generation that you can say is in their cocoon stage right now? What piece of advice would you give them for them to fly?
Live, laugh, learn, and love. And I'm not saying that to be like really quick with it or whatever.
I hear you.
Live, laugh, learn, and love. And I don't even feel like I need to expand on all of that. You know what I mean? We need to be continuous learners. You know what I mean? We need to really live and understand what that means. However we conceptualize it, really live. We need to laugh. Everything is not so serious, right? It's not. We need to have that balance, and laughing, I think, helps to sustain us in many ways, right? And love, I think ultimately that's where, it comes out. All of these things, all of these sort of aspects of goodness and, good vibrations and all of that stuff is born out of love, and it ain't easy. I'm so glad that this show was not one that focused on, the said negative aspects of, what it means to be a Black man, because we're inundated with that too often. We talk about that. This is what we continuously, are impacted by. And these are what the conversations are about in the world when regarding Black men, so I'm so glad that, these questions afforded us the opportunity to kind of have a different conversation.
And that's the main reason why this podcast even started, is because I coined the term middle brother, because I've noticed in my space, in my experience, that I've had to translate both generations, the older generation and the younger generation, in a way where the older generation and the younger generation were just like doing this. Right. But then I had to like sit in the middle and say, okay, I hear you.
Right.
And I'm learning from you, but I also hear him, and he's telling me something different about what's going on right now. And that I can say based off my experience and what I think, but I want to hear from you.
Yeah.
So based on what you've seen and experienced, what's one thing Black males can do to grow together?
Communicate. Communication is key. A lot of times we stray away from communicating because of whatever our hangups are in terms of doing that. But, we feel that in many regards, we can kind of deal with things internally more than we can deal with it, but again, my adage is that, balance is power. So communicate more, and I think it's dope they even had that title. I didn't know what the title meant. I was like, is he a middle? Wait a minute, he ain't no middle brother. I didn't know what was going on, but I like the title because, thinking back in like my therapy days, middle children in a sense, are the peacekeepers. They are the ones who, kind of like to hold the balance and keep that, keep the peace in between, siblings and the generations, if you will. Middle children are also the ones that, we need to not mispraise about. And what I mean by that is like, if the first child, the eldest child or whatever did something, it's like, oh, okay, and it's different children, and the middle children won't necessarily get acknowledged for it, so to speak, because it's like, okay, if the youngest child does something, it's like, oh, they're the young child, you know what I mean? And it's like the middle child is still in this thing. So in a sense, they have to kind of vie for praise. So I think that is something that we have to do with a middle child. So thinking about that, it could probably be attached to what I think could be done with Black men. I think that Black men, in a sense, also need to be told, how wonderful they are, how special they are, and then you got some facets of society or some people who just believe that, no, we do this all too much for Black men. We starting to coddle them and da-da-da. Well, my thing is like, we need to continue to do it until we are uplifted to the point where things become so what I mean is that there's so many deficits, that we have, we're looked at as the bottom of the totem pole, in regards to education, in regards to economics and, and that sort of thing. And like I said, until we either start to create our own sorts of, barometers for measuring these things, or be increased in the current sort of, societal structures that we have, then, we need to continue to work, but we need to do it differently because apparently, what we've been doing ain't really working too quickly. Let's just say that. Yeah. I mean, maybe well in certain arenas, certain areas, maybe interpersonal areas, but I'm not going to continue to do the same thing, all of that, just to maintain the status quo. That's corny. See, back in my day, we used to say corny, like you corny, and that's corny to keep doing the same thing. It's just corny. Yeah. It's corny. So
I like the fact that you said communication is key. Yeah. Because that's one thing that we're, as Black men, yes, we're always told, don't express your feelings, don't cry, don't do this. But at some point, you got to express yourself to another brother to say, hey, look, this is how I'm feeling. Right. And for him to understand, hey, I hear you. Right. I always say there's a difference between listening and hearing. Like, you can listen, but you could be doing something else while I'm talking to you. But you hearing actually what I'm saying and taking it in and saying that I just hurt his feelings. He just said X, Y, and Z. Right. So did I do anything or did I hear it a certain way? All right, brother. So I hear you. How can we move forward and learn from each other?
Yeah, exactly.
But before we do end, I do want to elevate you and your work in the community at the University of Penn. Any work that you have going on throughout the year of 2022, you can share right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's lots. It's a lot to do, man. We have some. First and foremost, we are working with the sort of the future doctors, medical doctors of tomorrow. So of course we're working on ways, especially in a city like Philadelphia. Where we're working to have better community connections and community engagement. Black folks in the communities that I grew up in, especially in West Philadelphia, have a very interesting relationship with the University of Pennsylvania, for one. A lot of us are born here, right? But anyway, very interesting relationships with medical doctors and just sort of medical science. And, we all know, and many of us know the history of how we've been disproportionately impacted, within these medical sciences and that sort of thing. So long story bearable, we're doing a lot around community engagement and really looking at increasing the health and health standards of and wellness for. I think my voice changed when I started talking about the job, and I put on my job voice. So the health standards of community and the West Philadelphia community in particular, right? But I also think that we're doing a lot with pipeline programs. I know that there's increasing interest in STEM and STEAM schools in the city and STEM and STEAM programs. So we're interested in looking at, the melanin enriched doctors of tomorrow and looking at opening doors and really having people understand, especially those who are melanin enriched, that they can become doctors too. You can do this.
Mm-hmm.
We can read, write, think, compute, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, also looking at increasing the understanding of cultural affinity groups and really empowering medical students to not only learn to become good practitioners of the sciences, but also to understand that self-knowledge they have to maintain, really, and that we all come to, these stages and, with different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different practices in terms of like religion and, and the ways in which we live, right? And really working with each other to find a happy medium, to do that successfully. So increasing, cultural affinity groups and, ERGs, or, just affinity groups in particular, because there are lots of folks, lots of different types of folks. It's not just, man, woman. It's not just male, female. There are lots of different gradations in between some of these pendulums. So we have to really respect those who are we're opening our doors to. So I just think that in general, the School of Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania are intentionally doing things to increase numbers of medical professionals as well as those who are melanin enriched. And I believe that, my role here is important because we help to really increase the impact of, raising, Black doctors, brown doctors, etc. So.
Okay. I appreciate you for saying that because a lot of people won't know about this information. A lot of people won't research this information. A lot of people won't know what's going on at the University of Penn in the space that you're in, diversity and inclusion and equity. So I appreciate you for elevating that. I do want to elevate. Do you have any gigs? Do you have anything as far as music wise? Do you have anything up and coming?
Or do you have you add a music portion to these podcasts, man? I could jam out, you know what I mean? At another talk some other time, But no, nothing. In April, the end of April this year, myself along with my group member Todd Smith, also known as Melissa Sunshine, we will be performing with the Philharmonic Orchestra at the Kimmel Center with the artists The Phantom and The Phoenix, his wife. And it's going to be dope. It's a hip hop orchestra. It's one of the founding hip hop orchestras in the world. And the brother is the progenitor. His name is Jeff McNeil, also known as The Phantom. And he's been doing this for a while, and we've been rocking out for a while. So that's probably for people to kind of like come and all of that. It's probably but it's at the Kimmel. I believe it's the end of April, like April 30th or something like that. And it's gonna be dope. So get a ticket, come experience it, love it, and if you hate it, throw some tomatoes and it's like, it should be a good time though. It should be good. It's dope.
I feel you. Thank you for sharing that. Because a lot of people, like I said, they may not know what you actually do outside of the space that you're in. Sure. And I want to elevate that because that's important, because that's another side of a Black man that they may not get to see all the time. Sure. Well, brother, I do want to say thank you for joining, and I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
And I love you.
I love you too, bro. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I want y'all to follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Urban Thinker Media. And also check out our website at urbanthinkermedia.com. And we'll see you all next time with another brother here on the Middle Brother Podcast. Peace.